Thursday night football's on tap again, and in theory, this should be a fun one. Very high total today for Bengals-Ravens on Thursday night football. And of course, we're going to do what we always do here on this channel. We're going to look at the projections in the ownership. We're going to look at some optimizers and sims, along with, of course, a hand build here, which we're also going to sim out. Through that process, we're going to find the must plays of today's Bengals-Ravens DraftKings Showdown. Let's get into it. Again, really high total in this one. Baltimore, 29.5 implied points. Cincinnati, 23.5 implied points. Last game we saw, these two teams went head-to-head. Joe Burrow went nuts passing. Lamar Jackson also went nuts passing. Going to be a lot of expectation today. These teams do put up a lot of passing production. You try to play the run game more, try to play the defenses more, try to play the kickers more. That's going to be the way to get unique, but let's find out what the projections tell us. Of course, shouts to the chat. We got Eddie here. We got Justin here. Appreciate you guys joining me bright and early here on this Thursday, and let's get into it. Top protected players as of right now, according to Stochastics data. Of course, link in the description to get more for 15% off. Lamar, you got 24.8 fantasy points. He is pretty far and away the number one projected guy. 4 more fantasy points than Jamar Chase. It is conceptually hard to imagine Lamar Jackson not making it as a flex player. It is hard to imagine Lamar not making it as a captain. He should be in a winning lineup, of course, if you were to fade him. It's going to be one game to get unique, but he's priced for it today. You were not getting a cheap discount here on your QB play. 11.4 is the salary for Lamar today on DraftKings. Jamar Chase, a 20.76 projection for him, 10.8 salary. So really high salaries for the highest projected guys here. But Jamar Chase, another quality play, not playing quite as well lately with T. Higgins out, but still certainly the best player on the Chase, on the entire team, rather. I guess is he the best player named Chase in the Bengals? He probably is. He's better than Chase Brown. The usage is there from generally. Still, though, on the year, targets have not been the most impressive. 7.8 targets a game was lower than T. Higgins, who had 9 targets a game. His target per out run rate at 21.9%. For comparison, T. Higgins was at 28%. Red zone targets have now slightly shifted to favor Chase at 1.3 compared to 1.2. And of course, Higgins isn't playing today, so it doesn't functionally matter, but more of a reflection on the fact that, frankly, Jamar Chase is not getting as good of a role as it seems like he should be getting, given how good he is and the fact that we know he can break a game open at any time. Joe Burrow, 20.25 prediction on him on a 10.4 salary. So this is not one of those slates, by the way, where QBs are priced so low that you can just jam them in. I was wondering, you have to be really deliberate about your choices. So you probably cannot fit all 4 of these guys in, as you might imagine, looking at the salaries with Lamar Jackson, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, and Derrick Henry. So these guys are all priced pretty well. Derrick Henry, 19.5 projection for him at 11.2 salary, so he'll be owned a little bit less as a result. That said, casuals love Derrick Henry. There's a casual slate in the fact that it's Thursday night football, so I think a very prime game too, where people are going to be watching this one. They're going to be people who are like, I'll throw a lineup in because it seems like a fun game. This is not, you're playing one of those, I don't know, historical like Texans-Jags games on Thursday night football before they had CJ Stroud. You're talking about a game people are actually going to want to play, so I'd expect casual ownership to be even higher. As a result, Derrick Henry, whatever his projection would be, he's probably going to be in at least 50% of lineups, maybe 60, maybe 70, who knows. Chase Brown, not that far outside the top 5 at a much cheaper price tag at $9K, but still priced fairly well for a guy who's had 1 week as a bell cow back. Going down the depth chart a little bit here. Let's sort by value first. Top value players, according to Stochastic, you have Kendrick Pryor, a wide receiver for Cincinnati, getting a 3.1 projection at $200. Kendrick Pryor is not on my radar. What was the snap count last week? 18 snaps last week. They're giving him 3.1 fantasy points after he got 18 snaps last week. That's going to come down. Either way, though, Kendrick Pryor right now looks like a top value play. I don't think that'll hold up. Charlie Kolar, 4.45 feels a little bit high for him. He has had some touchdowns, had some work. Workload for him, not the most reliable. He did play 22 snaps. He played 22 snaps last week. Should get more work, theoretically, with likely not being available. Andrews had 28 snaps last week and likely had 17. So, all right, so Kolar more in play. The Kendrick Pryor one I'm not getting. The Kolar one makes sense. Mark Andrews, a good value as well at 4,200. Again, no likely today, so that should help him out a little bit. Not a bad projection on him, not a bad salary. We've seen him have multiple touchdown games, so certainly wouldn't mind him at that price tag. Wonder if he gets chalky, actually. Tanner Hudson, another value here at 1,600 with a 4.7 projection. Trenton Irwin, $1,200 salary, 3.2 projection for him. So those guys are in play. I really don't get the Kendrick Pryor thing, but we'll figure it out as we go. Marlon Henry, have gotten there almost every game this year. That's certainly a thing that everybody's going to think today. So as is always the case for showdowns, you might want to think about that a little bit differently. again, just because guys have hit over and over again, you got to remember what the most casual players are looking at, which is something that you have to just look into. Like, it's the DVP stuff on DraftKings. It's what the results have been. They click the player. They see every single player getting there, on the box scores. It's like the same thing that happened with Brandon Aubrey. And when we had a showdown slate early in the year with the Cowboys, Brandon Aubrey's like first 3 games, he had 20 fantasy points, 18. People had jammed him in so much because they just clicked his name and were like, holy shit, this guy's scoring so much. Why am I not hearing more about him? And of course, he bombs in that game. So just because the guys have made lineups or whatever, even if they made every showdown possible for the Ravens, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're the kind of player you want to go to. Jermaine Burton breakout tonight. What would possibly make you think that? Like, just because he was at the nut low, getting kicked out of a game or not being allowed to play a game last week, along with screenshots out there of him at a casino, which I don't know if that was real or not, but no, I wouldn't make that bet. No, no. Sample with the 6-point projection seems strong. You are missing Eric All with the ACL tear. So, look, there's a lot of plays here you can make a case for today. Even Jermaine Burton, if you really wanted to, you can make the case. But I think really focusing on the primary plays here is going to be the core thing, and just taking whatever you get in an optimizer and a simulator would probably be the wisest thing to do. Your top ownership right now, 69% for Lamar Jackson overall, which is not so nice because he's going to also be 20% at captain. Obviously, Lamar, if you play him at captain, people's instinct is going to be play him naked or play him with less receivers. In reality, the way he does hit as a captain, especially at that price tag, is probably dragging along 1, 2, maybe even 3 receivers with him. In fact, Lamar with 3 receivers, I feel like has won a lot more showdowns, including this year. He won 1 of 3 receivers earlier this year. So it happens more often than you think. It happens, especially now that he's passing so much. He has one of the most aggressive drop back rates in the league. Frankly, the most control of his passing offense, more than like 99% of QBs in the league. Lamar, if you're paying him at QB, make sure you're stacking him up, get unique with the stack. If you're playing like Andrews with him and some other stuff, I think that's going to probably be not sneaking up on anybody. Joe Burrow, 54.5% ownership, 13.4% captain. Captain ownership, by the way, a little bit high here. Sometimes it does feel like captain ownership is lower than it's always projected for, including on Monday's slate where the QBs were really cheap. We talked about it. I was not a fan of Mahomes at captain overall. He ended up being decently owned, but not quite as owned as projections had it, because projections love the low salary for QBs. Casual players just tend to know that QB captain's a little bit over-owned usually. I'm not sure if that'll apply for the slate with Lamar, but for Burrow, he might be a little bit less owned as 13.4% because people just don't like the non-running QB captain that much. Chase Brown, 10% ownership for him and captain. Another solid play here. The work has been good for him overall. I don't have his count from last week, but on the year, Chase Brown is now up to 2.4 intended red zone touches a game, 15 intended touches overall. Obviously cleared 20 last week. Even if Khalil Herbert matters in this offense, it probably won't matter for this week too much. Maybe they got out there for a few snaps, but it's not going to be enough to kill Chase Brown's work. So biggest issue for him is that the Ravens run defense is actually pretty good. A negative 0.1 EPA per rush allowed, negative 0.3 EPA per red zone rush allowed. Doesn't mean that Chase Brown can't get there, especially with that crush of volume. And the fact, too, that he got pretty good pass game work. The Ravens don't defend RB targets that well, giving up a 0.35 EPA, which would be one of the worst marks in the league, a 17% target rate to RBs. So I think Chase Brown getting there through pass game, still in play. Don't mind him as a captain play. 10% ownership is a little bit more than you'd like. And I think Nolan's right here. Feels like there's 10 viable captains. That would not shock me. What do we do with Deontay? Probably not play him. They've been pretty clear that he's a wide receiver 3 there. For a showdown, you can play anybody, but it's not like DeAndre Hopkins where you're waiting for the breakout and you know that they need the player. They don't really need Deontay right now. He was like a pure luxury play, more of a handcuff play. You can get more work. You can make a play work and overall here, but he probably is going to be a little bit too overowned for a Thursday night game. Again, chock full of casual players. Jamar Chase, 50% ownership, 10.6% at captain. Jamar Chase, I like coming off the flop flag kind of game where he did not play that well last week. He is still the primary target here. That said, you have Gesicki coming through, and Gesicki last week getting kind of lucky on some of those plays, I think took a little bit away from Jamar Chase's theoretical production. So if that levels out, Chase gets more work. Gesicki probably goes down a little bit. Both guys, if they make it, I don't know if Gesicki makes it in the flex, if Chase makes it as captain quite as easily. Especially with that price tag. Gesicki here is at 6,600 now. But I do think Chase, there is to me a push-pull dynamic with Jamar Chase and Gesicki and how that production is going to go. Derrick Henry, 46% ownership for him, 12% at captain. So even though he's a little bit less projected, they're still giving him more captain ownership, which I think more reflects the game script than it does anything projection-wise. Stochastic does sort of account for that stuff a little bit more. Zay Flowers, 10% ownership of captain. Everybody else going to be less than that. So Mark Andrews, 5%. Gesicki, under 5%. Drew Sample, 1%. These guys are not the most great plays in the world, but I do think Andrews and Gesicki interesting. Sample, probably not. Tucker, I think, interesting in this kind of spot with a really high total. Kolar, a little thin to me. I think Andrews has kind of cemented his role. Defense captain, probably not today. I see down the ownership too. Deontay Johnson at 16% here. The salary maybe could work, but yeah, I think Eddie is thinking about Deontay Johnson a little bit more than you should. I really wouldn't view him as like, oh, we got to figure out what we're going to do with him. Like, probably what you should do, if he's going to be the same ownership as Bateman, you should probably just play Bateman, who's getting more work and is like clearly the wide receiver too, and they've made a pretty clear commitment to him. Besides that, guys under 10% owned. Why? Bree, I feel like you had some really good takes at the beginning of the year. I'm asking some questions here about where you're going with this stuff these days. Why would he do it tonight? After he just got kicked out of a game or like wasn't allowed to play a game after being practicing all week. Like, these are things, team trust is a really important part of things. Yeah, you can get going, I guess, but it's not like, oh, I need to buy into him now. And it's also not like you're having a contrarian take, given the fact like there's been 2-3 people in the chat already saying Burton's going to go nuts today. Like, I don't think that's it. It's social media. It's the same thing too. I really would, I'd caution against that kind of thought process. Like, these guys earn their way up the depth chart, especially rookies. Like, that's why the post-rookie bump is a big thing. He had his shot last week and then they took it away from him because he wasn't ready for prime time. So, yeah, I understand the premise. That doesn't mean that Burton gets going though. Burton, if he hits, is going to get like one catch for 40 yards. I don't know. It's certainly could go wrong if I take too big of a stand on it, but I don't agree with that take. Eric All might be in play. He tore his ACL. So no, he's not a play. Come on, D. Owens. Jesus Christ. I think I'm going to just take a break from the chat here. Let's focus on the solver here. The next part of this one. Guys, please. I know it's my job to get you there too, so I'm fully aligned with that. But come on, dude, let's do the work here. This is what the game is here on Splash Play. We do the work here every day. Of course, Monday to Friday, 11 a.m. And come in with your best takes and come in with good ones, please. All right. Yes, you will eat that crow, especially from not being a member too. You're getting double whammied on that one, D-Owens. We got ETR's projections in here. Of course, we're going to run 25 memberships, 20 lineups. D-Owens getting in my head. 25 lineups here at this point. We're going to see what we get in terms of just the pure projection math, which is an important part of the process, just to determine basically is Zach Moss, if he gets back out there. I think he's really due after that bad game last week. He didn't put up a single point last week. So, well, can we go to some old Bengals? I think Rudy Johnson's due for a big game today. He's been putting up points for a while. Chase said you apologize on the field. Burton will do that tonight. If you want to fucking spin that narrative, Paul, knock yourself out, man. I don't think Burton, the issue with Burton, he's not listening to anybody. Chase also said, I told him before what he has to do and he's not doing it. So like, I don't know why this would be the thing. You're reading it like it's a sports movie. And granted, again, things can happen that are like a sports movie, but please play showdowns logically. At this point, we have so much fucking data. What are we doing, man? Yes, he's on IR. He's out for the year. He might not play for like a literal year. He's got spinal issues. We know. I know. Please help me out. Let's look at lineups here. I think I'm just gonna chat. I love you guys. Let's focus on the work here because the work is better here. Lamar Jackson, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow. If you're playing a cash game lineup right now at 11:15 a.m. on the East Coast, this is it. Yeah, this is full point PPR. It's a good point. Much like drafters, we learned so much. We got Lamar, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Mike Gesicki, Mark Andrews, Charlie Kolar, double tight ends, Lamar captain. Structurally, Lamar captain with 2 pass catchers makes sense. Doing both tight ends obviously can carve the work a little bit, but this is going right for me where I feel like Andrews and Kolar, not sneaking up anybody here. Again, you have likely out. People love to play the players who theoretically get work when a player's out. And sometimes it does make DFS sense, but on a lot of these slates, especially in football, it's not always one-to-one where, hey, likely goes out. All of a sudden, the tight end role is so much better. Like likely's been, out there a good amount, but infrequently involved sometimes. So there's no guarantees that Mark Andrews and Kolar get there. That said, for a cash game, it's absolutely the lineup. Your top 25 lineups overall. You're getting Lamar in all 100% of them, getting Jamar Chase in 96% of them. So basically, your only fade play would be Lamar. The issue is in this slate. Normally, I would say, hey, get away from the 100% owned guy. You could do that. You go Derrick Henry captain, play the Ravens defense, maybe just play Lamar somehow not getting there. He does seem to get sacked a little bit more than I would like to see. He's at a 7% sack rate this year, getting pressured 36% of the time. Bengals not generating great pressure, 22% pressure rate. But that's like the one way you can play Lamar is I think it would just be that, I mean, he gets hurt. He does have an injured knee. So that's, I guess, the other way you could play it. Not that you're necessarily doing that for Showdown, but like for a guy who's this obvious to play, who data-wise gets in every lineup. For Lamar, I think it's one of these plays where like you really need to think of a very specific way to not play him if you're going to not play him. Otherwise, just play him everywhere. Besides that, stack constructions overall, we're getting a lot of 3-3s, so evenly distributed builds. Playing Onslaught's going to be a little bit more appealing. You are getting 4-2 Bengals, you're getting 4-2 Ravens, and you're getting 5-1 Ravens a little bit, but not a lot of that. So 5-1 Bengals, totally unrepresented, and honestly, this is a pretty even split, so nothing here really standing out as a clear advantage. We do not have solver sims ready to go. Of course, if you want to check out the sims on the solver, go do it yourself later today. Solver, link in the description down below. Check it out, please, because that one, for whatever reason, like I love this product, and I don't think we're selling as many of these as we are for Stochastic. So please check out the solver too. Like, two great tools. Stochastic, as I mentioned, if you want like kind of lineups given to you that are well built and meant to represent the field, that's in a fast period of time as well. Stochastic is great. If you want to really labor over your lineups, and I'll show you guys this real fast because I think it's worth it. Like, let's say I want to build a set of lineups here where I only want, I don't know, who's a unique captain? Zay Flowers is going to be a 10% on captains. Let's do that. Or, you know what? Let's go even more unique. Rashad Bateman here. So we build out, I mean, I'm not going to build a ton, but just for the sake of it, put on high variance. So we're putting Bateman in a captain here. Basically, what you can do is just build out a set of lineups that only reflect this one thing. And that is something where Stochastic, you can't control that. So just want to sales pitch the solver better, because I feel like if I'm not converting for it, it's probably on me. It is a really great product. It's more than just like new fantasy cruncher. It's something where if you want to have control of your lineups in a really specific way, you can do that. And then you can also sim them out off of that. So that's a big advantage here. You can see some of the Bateman lineups: Bateman, Lamar Jackson, Chase, Burrow, Andrews, Yeshua. There's no like anything special on this, but point being is like, this is the kind of thing you can solver. I'd recommend it if you want to check it out for more. Let's go and do some sim stuff over on Stochastic next. Sim stuff sounds kind of dirty. Yeah, we did get off the rails. But you know, we got back. You know what? Like, I think the one thing I pride myself on, and sometimes, look, to be clear, and not to bash anybody in the chat, like I come in sometimes and I miss stuff too. So like for me, there's no flaws if it happens, but you know, like I try to get through clean here. I have to correct a lot of stuff. It does throw me off. Any chance the Ravens run more 11 personnel with no likely in the addition of Deontay or Kolar? No, I think it's most likely to just put Kolar in there, and it's almost a 1-to-1 thing. Kolar is a good blocker too, so I don't see that. It's a possibility. If you want to play that, you can, but it wouldn't be the way I'd expect it to go. All right, 10,000 lineups to do that. I don't believe in rails, just railing. Well, not these days. Too much sports, right? Who has time to do railing? I think it's a third to first place again here is what's been basically every slate lately. So let's do that. We're going to run this sim. What we're going to do is have 10,000 lineups competing 10,000 times with 35% the first place here. So we'll figure it out. Trying to figure out who to add with Icky Woods at captain. Oh, doing the Icky shuffle all the way to the top of the pay window. Here's the thing, though. It's like Icky Woods is due because he hasn't scored for a while. That's the thing. Jamar Chase actually got a really inspirational talk with Icky Woods where he's like, Icky, you can't be shuffling your way into the end zone unless you're playing in games. And Icky Woods really took that one to heart. That's... Cedric Benson, really due for a big game this week. Now that Zach Moss is on IR, which we learned earlier in the video, Cedric Benson going to come off the pine, do some good stuff. Cadillac Williams, I think, is looking. Was Cadillac Williams a Bengal? I feel like he was. Well, who was like the Bengals had a lot of fucking really esoteric backs in like the early 2000s, mid 2000s. Corey Dillon's a famous one now, but I feel like people hold him in regard. He was a joke for a while as a Bengals back, just wasting his time there. Then he went to the Patriots and did stuff, won things. So we can't make fun of him. But Corey Dillon also do. I think we'd all agree. All right, your top ROI lineups right now. Mark Andrews, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, Justin Tucker, Lamar Jackson, Mike Gesicki. You are sneaking up on fucking nobody with this lineup. I don't see that being zero dupes. I don't think that's clever. I don't think that should be a top ROI lineup. I would bet this gets duped substantially more. Lamar Jackson, it's only $500 left on the table too. No chance. Like what are you getting unique with here? None of that. Oh, Joe Mixon was modern day Corey Dillon. We'll see if he has the same outcome in Houston. It's not looking good. People do love Corey Dillon. Corey Dillon. There we go. Basically, they're just saying Corey Dillon. People love Corey Dillon. It's going to be dupe, but I love it for a cash game. That's fair. I think I just don't get how that could be a top ROI lineup with no dupes on it. But hey, things will move around, of course, throughout the course of the day. I'm looking at these lineups right now at 11:22 a.m. on the East Coast. So keep that in mind here. Your number 2 ROI lineup, Lamar Jackson, Charlie Kolar, Jamar Chase, Mark Andrews, Mike Gesicki, Zay Flowers. A little bit sneakier, I guess. Triple stack with Lamar. No RB, no Derrick Henry. That's going to help that out a little bit. Chad Johnson would have been a pretty good captain. That's right. Chad Ochocinco, I wouldn't play a captain. Chad Johnson, I would. Again, both guys do, though, because they haven't put up scores in a while. Mike Gesicki, Chase Brown, Justin Tucker, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers. I don't feel like that one's sneaking up anybody either. What? Like, usually the top ROI lineups are like, what? Okay, this guy's jammed in here for some reason. I get that. Number 4 ROI lineup, Mark Andrews, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Tanner Hudson. Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Kendrick Pryor. There's our boy Kendrick making it in. Not the good Kendrick Park in chat. Kendrick Pryor or Kendrick Lamar, who also obviously we love, but Kendrick Park, my favorite guy. Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Mike Gesicki. So basically, it just seems like Mike Gesicki is buying you freedom in all these lineups. So, but Mark Andrews lineups, you're getting every player in basically besides Derrick Henry. So if you play Mark Andrews, playing the run game a little bit more makes some sense. Trying to get leverage with Kolar. I don't think you can put up enough to make it captain. The Kolar leverage against Andrews with him coming up everywhere makes sense too. There you go. I mean, your number 5 lineup here. There's number 6. I'm not sure. Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Kendrick Pryor. I think that's one we just read. All right. Top 150. Let's look at that. Like Detrone Means went there for the Chargers. I might be wrong. I don't recall that, but we're digging deep. I loved Means though. That was one of the first video games I had as like a little kid. It was a Sega Genesis. I think it was a Madden. I think it was like one of the early Maddens where it was like the top down view. I remember Detrone Means for some reason, or Natron Means. You could just fucking throw up screen passes, even though he's like 300 pounds. And he did run him in real life too, but that boy was a demon on a screen. They were not ready for physics in those games. All right. Single Mike Gesicki captain, 5-1 Bengals is not special. How dare you? I mean, look, if you play Andrews, I don't think it's special. It seems to be the key takeaway. That said, Mark Andrews at captain, 56% ROI. So the Sims want you to go there a lot. They also love Charlie Kolar at captain, $900 salary at captain. Wow, that is a pretty good deal for a captain. I don't think he has got the upside. People will play it. 25% ROI there, and if he does somehow hit, you've now crammed in every player possible who's going to have a ceiling on the slate. Mike Gesicki, 24% ROI for him at captain, even though he's got a $10,000 salary on that one. That does ring a bell. That's an expansion draft, right? He went to the Panthers, I think. Man, we're digging deep on that one. The Fred Taylor, that was shortly after, right? I think after the expansion draft. Tanner Hudson, 24% ROI, $2,400 at captain. Mike Gesicki, 8% ROI in the flex. So Gesicki, the Sims like a lot. Get him at captain, get him in the flex. Really worried people are going to see that 30-point game and think that's just what he does when T. Higgins is out. I think Gesicki ownership is going to get out of control, which would sort of affect how the Sim works. Because I think the Sim thinks he's going to be low owned. Stochastic projections on ownership for Gesicki. Where are they at? 35%, 5% in captain, which we talked about before. I don't buy this Gesicki stuff. I don't buy the Gesicki stuff. Sanders to be way under the field on Gesicki due to his ownership. Look, I think he's a good play. Baltimore, what are they doing against tight end? I mean, Gesicki's mostly playing out of the slot. So they are giving up a good EPA out of the slot, 0.31 EPA there, limiting the rate a little bit, of 42% target rate to the slot. Gesicki not getting traditional tight end targets. Yeah. Gesicki, I think, is functionally an okay play, but I just don't think he's like a 30-point play. So I would prefer him in the flex if you're going to play him, but $7K is a pretty tough price tag still. But they should be playing from behind. So Gesicki in a game where they're playing from behind, it's easy for him to get there. So I would caution against the full Gesicki fade, I think, even though I think it's more about being strategic where you're playing Gesicki. I know it's like a cop-out answer, but really what the Sims show us always is if you're going to deploy him in lineups that feel low owned, because he's still a good play, unfortunately. Just not a 30-point good play. Tanner Hudson, 5% ROI for him in the flex. And Charlie Kolar, 5% ROI for him in the flex as well. Or excuse me, Mark Andrews, 5%. Charlie Kolar, negative in the flex. So Kolar, positive in the captain, negative in the flex. Andrews, positive in the flex and in the captain. All right. Yes, please need some likes, guys. If you appreciate this content, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Of course, I do this content every Monday to Friday at 11 a.m., Sundays at 9 a.m. as well. Similar things, looking at projections, of course, using the top tools in the space, trying to find you guys an advantage. So please do support that and check it out. And yes, and listen to Spurious News, do all that. find $5 and put it down by joining down below. And of course, NBA coming up later today at 4 p.m. for me, and I'll also be on Stochastics Deeper Dive at 5:30. So lots of good stuff coming out. NBA, frankly, but I've been crushing even more based on some of what I've heard from you guys and my own lineups, to be candid. So check it out. Of course, I'm on a good run for everything right now. I feel pretty good. We're in week 10. We've got enough time left in the season to make a run here. I think we're landing at a good spot with where we are in the year. Top exposures overall. Let's look at that from the top 150 lineups. The highest ROIs, of course, says in the thumb or in the title of the video, best ROI lineups. Let's look at them. So we got Mike Gesicki. You're getting 61% exposure overall, getting 2x the field of Mike Gesicki in the flex. So for whatever we might think about chalk, whatever my concerns might be about people seeing that box score and locking Gesicki in, the Sims think you should be getting 2x the field here, 61% exposure. I would watch out, though. I'm not sold that actual field ownership is going to be 31%. I think it's going to be closer to 40 to 50, to be honest, which would throw off the math a little bit on this. Mark Andrews, 55% in the flex compared to 48%. So a little bit above the field. You're still closer to holding hands. And do the Sims give you Lamar? Hold on. You're getting Lamar 55% in the flex, and you're getting Lamar 14% of captain. So you're actually getting Lamar in only 70% of lineups. You're not getting him in 100%, which surprises me a little bit. But I think it does speak to the fact that even though it is hard to imagine a world where Lamar doesn't get there, still probably worth playing some non-Lamar lineups because, I mean, 20% of lineups in this, I guess no, 30% of lineups in this don't include Lamar. So interesting to see that and note that. Joe Burrow, 53% exposure compared to 43% in the flex. Chase Brown, 53% exposure compared to 42% in the flex. Jamar Chase, 49% compared to 38%. So you're over on all those guys. Andrews, 43% compared to 32%. You're getting him in the flex a good amount. Are you getting Andrews in every lineup? Andrews, you're getting 21% in captain. All right, so you're getting him 65%-ish overall. So nobody the sim thinks should be in like every lineup, even though it does feel like Lamar, Andrews, with how the lineups work, should get in every lineup. Other lineups here to look at that might be interesting. Some unique captains, perhaps. If you have requests, drop in the chat for a unique captain to look at, and I will pull it up if I can. Look, we looked at Bateman on the solver. Let's look at Bateman here. Again, soft Cincinnati pass defense too. Baltimore's isn't good, but some of that is out of necessity because of the fact Baltimore is always up on teams, so they have to pass more. For the Baltimore side of the equation, though, Cincinnati's still going up a 0.01 EPA per dropback, 0.01 EPA per rush, 0.05 EPA per pass. So something to keep in mind here where you have two teams that have positive EPAs allowed per pass. Generally, that could portend a shootout. Obviously, though, everybody expects a shootout in this game because we just saw one the last time out. So trying to play a little bit tighter, I still think is kind of the move. So Bateman, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Mike Gesicki, Tanner Hudson. Bateman, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, Tucker, Lamar Jackson, Andrews. Bateman, Chase Brown, Deontay Johnson. There you go. If you want to play some Deontay, he makes this lineup. Jamar Chase, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews. It's okay. There are a lot of RBs on this play. And Bengals so stingy. Instead of playing Chase and T. Higgins, they bring back Collinsworth, Ochocinco, and TJ Houshmandzadeh. I mean, look, according to what we learned earlier, all these guys are in play because they haven't had good games lately. All right, we got Bateman here. Let's look at Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers capped in a lot more in the top 150 ROIs, but not a ton. Zay Flowers, Charlie Kolar, Derrick Henry, Justin Tucker, Lamar Jackson, Mike Gesicki. Zay Flowers, Charlie Kolar, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Mike Gesicki. Zay Flowers, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Mike Gesicki, Travion Williams. Tucker becoming a better play. Tucker's always overplayed on primetime slates. But with Andrews being that price and people liking Gesicki, kind of wonder if Tucker gets played a little bit less today. Derrick Henry captains. Herbert's in the projections right now. I assume he goes, but he probably doesn't have a big role. Derrick Henry, Chase Brown, Drew Sample, Joe Burrow, Mark Andrews, Mike Gesicki, your top ROI lineup right now with 219% on that one. Does have a dupe on it, which probably means it's probably got 5 to 10 dupes at least. Derrick, this one's using 50K. But playing Kendrick Pryor. Derrick Henry, Jamar Chase, Kendrick Pryor, Lamar Jackson, Andrews, Gesicki. Tell you what, if Kendrick Pryor does anything today, and I don't know why he would, given that I didn't know he existed until right now. Look, and you guys know if you watch these videos, I know every player in the league. I know 10th string wide receivers. Kendrick Pryor was not on my radar getting 20 snaps last week. I'm going to look him up on NFL Plus after this and try to look at his plays, see if there's anything useful he did, if he even got a target. But like this lineup here works, and I don't think people will play Kendrick Pryor enough. He'll still get duped a little bit because he's like the only $200 guy with any sort of projection on him. But this is a really sick lineup besides the Kendrick Pryor part, for sure. Derrick Henry, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, Mark Andrews, Gesicki, Tanner Hudson. All right. Derrick Henry lineups are fine. Don't really see a ton of uniqueness here. Tanner Hudson, I think, gets you more unique playing him with Gesicki, both tight ends on that side, along with another tight end. You're getting so many tight ends in these lineups. Like, if you just play wide receivers, getting splash plays, that could work. For all the Burton fans, how many Jermaine Burton captains do we have? Oh, not a single one? Oh, is he not a good play according to projections? Even in the flex, you're getting 2 lineups with Burton here, and they're both negative 75% ROI. So here we go. Did Terrell Pryor put on a wig and a mustache? That'd be a good bet. I'd support it. 1 target, one catch, 9 yards. Hey, I can make a lineup if everything else hits, but it's tough. Went to a high school 30 minutes from me, and I've never heard of him. Well, there you go. That's maybe not the greatest ghost sign in the world. Anyway, Jermaine Burton right now, for what it's worth, look, if you guys hitting him, more power to you. He just doesn't have a projection on him, so he's not viable to play to me currently. Gesicki captains. We saw a few here up top. Gesicki, Chase Brown, Justin Tucker, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers. Gesicki, Chase Brown, Evan McPherson, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews. Gesicki, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Justin Tucker, Mark Andrews. So just Andrews crammed himself into all the top ROI lineups, which I get. I should put in Jamar. So we got 2 chases on this slate. Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Kendrick Pryor, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Mike Gesicki. Again, don't think you're sneaking up on anybody with that one either besides the Kendrick Pryor part. So that's what makes him work, unfortunately. Jamar Chase, Charlie Kolar, Chase Brown, Evan McPherson, Joe Burrow, Mike Gesicki. Jamar Chase, Chase Brown, Joe Burrow, Mark Andrews, Mike Gesicki, Tanner Hudson. Jamar Chase, Charlie Kolar, Joe Burrow. All right. I mean, you're not getting as much dominant Mark Andrews here. Probably because it gets too chalky with Chase and Andrews together, would be my guess. I don't mind the Jamar Chase lineups, though, which I guess shouldn't be a surprise. What else do we have to look at here? I think we've looked at the main ones. Chase Brown, Yoshevitz, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Justice Hill, Mike Gesicki. So a 5-1 Cincinnati build, going to be less owned today. I think that works, even though you're not leaving a lot of salary on the table. Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Gesicki, Aguilar. Aguilar was still getting snaps last week, even though Deontay Johnson was in the mix. I think he also got a target or 2. Yeah, Aguilar played 19 snaps last week. And Deontay played, what, 18? Deontay played 17. So Aguilar's still in play, actually. Would not be crazy. We didn't look at Kolar captain, so I don't think it's viable, but we can look at it. Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Justice Hill, Mike Gesicki, Tanner Hudson. Honestly, this being a Justice Hill game would be pretty interesting. I wouldn't be opposed to that. Let's see. We'll look at Kolar. Charlie Kolar, Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, Mike Gesicki, Zay Flowers. Charlie Kolar, Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Mike Gesicki. Charlie Kolar, Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, Jamar Chase, Lamar Jackson, Ravens. My God, Gesicki's coming out of your mouth a lot. He's in all these lines. His ownership will definitely get steamed. I agree. I think it's tough because I think the sim is reflecting an ownership that's not accurate to the field right now. It certainly, again, it's going to move around as the day goes on, and they'll probably recognize that if that's something they feel like they need to change to be more accurate. I would compare it to ETR's data if you can. Cody Main does a good job protecting ownership as well. But right now, again, Stochastic has Gesicki under 40%. So I think he's closer to 50, 55 overall. With how he played last week, wouldn't shock me if he got to 60 plus. What else can we look at here? Hill could have a really big game in any sort of trailing script. Henry's great, but he doesn't have the play in the primary pass scripts at all. He also doesn't play on 3rd and longs either. So, like, there's definitely a way. The issue, though, which I've seen with Henry a few times, is like, it doesn't mean he makes a lineup and doesn't score enough points to do it at that salary. Like, sometimes you'll have Justice Hill getting the work and Derrick Henry will start slow, and the Ravens even it out, and then it's right back to Derrick Henry ball, and he gets, breaks the one big play, gets a touchdown, whatever. So, like, even if you play Justice Hill, I don't think Derrick Henry's dead, but I think Justice Hill in this spot where you do see a lot of sacks going the way of Lamar, and, Bengals at least a flat, even pressure team. Justice Hill could get there. One worrying point would be Keaton Mitchell. He's questionable right now. If he plays, he would affect the Justice Hill outlay a little bit. How much, I don't know. But honestly, he could affect Derrick Henry a little bit too. It's really interesting. Here we go. I am the KY talking about it. Mitchell upgraded to a Q tag. Will he eat in the hill snaps? I don't think he eats it to the 3rd and long stuff. They just wouldn't trust him in pass protection coming off an ACL tear. That's that. Mike, I don't know if this is going to do a lot for you. Looked at these already up top. We saw the top ROI ones. I'll just pull them up. I don't want to read them all again. These ones we already saw. Andrews, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, Tucker, Lamar. I'm still reading them. Gesicki. We do have audio listeners, unfortunately. Andrews, Chase Brown, Chase, Burrow, Jackson, Hudson. Andrews, Chase Brown, Hunter Henry, Joe Burrow, Lamar, Hudson. Playing Hudson, I could see it making more unique, but you're going to get really duped a lot if you play Mark Andrews captain. He's too cheap on the slate, and people know he's got 2 touchdown upside because it's happened within the last month. So I just don't think you're going to be clever putting Mark Andrews at captain is what I would say. General guys, Sam here. Always glad to see him live. Appreciate him as always. DJ had the short week after getting traded. We saw nuke snaps. I don't think it's the same thing though. The Chiefs really needed DeAndre Hopkins to play because they had nobody else out there. The Ravens really do like Zay Flowers and really do like Rashad Bateman. They just paid Bateman as well. And Zay Flowers is suddenly hitting the highest upside he's ever had. So I think Deontay Johnson is not a good play. He certainly can work, but I think he'll get crammed in a little bit more because people are going to have that same logic. And again, it's a casual slate. They're thinking Deontay Johnson, whoa, he's so cheap, but he's so good. He's got to get some reps. And in reality, I think it probably just makes Bateman a better game theory play. Let's try to hand build one here. I think we've answered all the requests in the chat. Let's see what we can do here. As a Ravens fan, most feel Mitchell is more insurance spark plug behind Henry becomes direct backup. Hill's still good in pass pro. I would agree with that. I think you can still get some pass game work, but probably not right away because you don't trust him in high leverage spots right now, I don't think. It's hard to come off an ACL tear and be asked to block, on Thursday Night Football. Appreciate Eric being here. Going to rewind, catch it from the beginning. Thank you for watching, my friend. Of course, if you're watching live or after the fact, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. All the engagements matter a lot for me as sole proprietor here. Just shows you my gambling as best I can, using the best tools in the space, best data in the space, and hopefully the best process in the space is what I try to bring to you guys every day here. And again, 15% off Stochastic, link in the description, including stuff like the single lineup simulator. A lot of great tools of all price points, and you get 15% off all of them. Promo code SPLASH on Stochastic, or click that link in the description. Let me make sure I'm pulling up the showdown here. All right. Captain. Who do we put at captain? It's hard to imagine Lamar not being there. Of course, we know Lamar is going to be the uber, ultimate, mega chalk, whatever you want to call it. I do think I want to play this game scoring points some way that's not just a total shootout. How do we do that? Chase Brown early. Justice Hill. I think I want Hill in the lineup no matter what. 5,200 is not a good price tag, though. The tough part, so going into this, I know for the ROI, trying to get a good ROI here, hand building. It's you put Mark Andrews in, your hand build's going to look a lot better. Do I trust him enough in this game with him being likely super chalk? I'm not sure about that. But even playing Justice Hill, I don't want to play him over Mark Andrews. So I'm going to play Andrews as my first play here in the flex. 4,200 is just too cheap for him. He can absolutely bust. I think this ownership is incorrect too. I don't see him being just 1/3 owned. With 37% overall, including captain. But he's too cheap, I think, to not put in here, and it's going to fuck up the ROI if I don't put him in. Captain plays. Would like to get captain first if I could. I mean, look, I think Lamar makes it in the flex no matter what. I'm not going to be a hero here and not put him in. So Lamar making it there. We're playing now a game script where Baltimore is moving the ball. Andrews maybe has a touchdown. Unclear about that. Let's put in Henry. Let's play the build that I just talked about. So Hill, they still getting some early third down situations. Justice Hill gets more work as a result. Derrick Henry then cleans up at some point. We now need to get a captain in. And again, we're playing a build where they're behind. So this is unfortunately where I do think a Gesicki captain would make sense. Let's see what we can do with that. Gesicki captain here. We leave 8,100 left. So it's still a good amount on the table. And you have to leave all this money on the table at that point. McPherson, one of the kickers. Tucker McPherson. I mean, I guess if Tucker's kicking field goals, there's less touchdown for the Ravens. A 1-5 with your 1 being the captain doesn't hit often. But I think this is interesting. With Gesicki at captain, Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, Justin Tucker. So seeing some early struggles here. A lot of third downs. Maybe they don't score touchdowns. Late in the game, they start to run away. That's how they hit their 29-point total. I think it makes sense for me strategically, even though it's not the prettiest lineup in the world. Bengals D captain? No. Chase captain? Meh. Peace and love for all my sicko friends of the Y. There we go. Negative 48%. Oh my God. What is an extra hug never hurt anyone? I agree, Sammy. Odd thing to say, but sure. So according to Stochastic, this lineup never wins. No lineup never wins. But this is not a good lineup according to them. What can we flip? Let's go Tucker captain. Saves a lot of Baltimore yardage. A lot of Baltimore yardage and PPR points, but Tucker's finishing drives. He's only going to be 1.5% owned a captain, allegedly. And we do need a Bengal coming back. Chase Brown's a Bengal. Chase Brown's a man. All right, so $900 left on the table with a Justin Tucker captain lineup with Andrews, Lamar, Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, Chase Brown. And actually, I should look at some Tucker captain lineups too before we leave here. So I'll do that. I'll look at Tucker and McLaughlin. All right, 0.1% win rate, negative 20% ROI. I think it's still playable. It's unique. Well, let's go back and see what good Justin Tucker captain lineups are, supposedly. Captain Tucker. Again, Tucker's not been that good this year, but I think people know that. So that's what makes him more interesting play is the fact he won't be as owned as he might normally be. So you have, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more for you guys. You got Tucker, Drew Sample, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Mike Gesicki. Only 2 of the Tucker captain lineups, by the way, in the top 150 lineup. So maybe a little bit sneaky. Tucker, Chase Brown, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Mike Gesicki. Tucker, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Mark Andrews, Mike Gesicki, Zay Flowers. I think you got to leave a little more on the table, maybe. Tucker, Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, Lamar, Mark Andrews. That's a little more appealing to me. I actually like that build a good amount. 49-1. Still a 44% ROI on it. I can live with it. McLaughlin, captain. Does have a big leg. Or McPherson, rather. Sorry. Thinking about my Bucks. My precious Bucks. McPherson. So none of the McPherson lineups in the top 150. Again, they don't have the crazy high total, so it's hard to imagine them doing that. But Baltimore clamps down the red zone a little bit more, so maybe. McPherson, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Gesicki, Aguilar. I feel like if McPherson's hitting a captain, that means the Bengals aren't going for 4th downs because they're in the game and they're theoretically ahead or at least competitive. Because they're going to go for it more if the Ravens are ahead. And this build to me, and I think doesn't scream Ravens playing from behind, so I'm not sure I'd agree with that. McPherson, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Travion, Zay Flowers. Travion did not do a whole lot last week. McPherson, Charlie Kolar, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, Burrow, Lamar. That one's a little bit better. But I think they're saying that it has to be a Bengals dominant build for McPherson to make it his captain. I don't know that I agree with that, but the Sims are the Sims, obviously. You get the idea. Tucker captain definitely looks better, though, for sure. Chase, 1192, captain of the Ravens onslaught. You got to have the Bengals really pulling ahead there, which I'm not sure is the most likely outcome. All right, how do you get unique on the slate? 3 takeaways, build unique lines for this one to close us out. And first of all, guys, before I hit those 3 takeaways rather, to build unique lineups, hit that like button, subscribe. Of course, new videos every day, Monday at 11. Oh, fuck me. Monday to Friday, 11 a.m. I'm trying to get out here too fast. But lots of videos here on the channel, of course, giving you takes on Monday's showdowns, Thursday's showdowns, of course, the main slates on Fridays and on Sundays at 9 a.m. So please join us on the ride here. And I promise I flub a little bit less usually. Underdog, promo code slash $1,000 in bonus cash. Stochastic, 15% off. Link in the description. Unabated, $30 off as well using promo code SPLASH there. Lots of great tools. Of course, we'll talk about them more on the NBA show at 4 p.m. And the solver, check it out, the link in the description. All right. Get unique today. Number 1 would be don't play Lamar. Sucks to hear it. That's really what the reality is. Again, keep in mind, sim-wise, top 150 lineups are still getting about 30% of them that don't include Lamar. So there's a reflection here of just what the situation is where you love Lamar. Lamar's a great play. As I said, I can't imagine Lamar not making a winning lineup in the flex or in captain. That said, the way to get away from the field, if you somehow were to hit the biggest money possible, if you're putting one entry in the biggest tournament, I think taking Lamar out is not a crazy thing to do. That's just showdown. It's not about playing the best play. It's about playing the most unique lineups that have a realistic shot. It's finishing first place. Number 2 would be, I think playing the kickers more seems appealing to me. It's a high total here. People always think high totals mean shootout. And in reality, like high totals often do correlate to a shootout. Because really the expectation of more points means that just like the defenses aren't good. That's what the models out there are reading. And that's what sets the lines basically across everything. But in this kind of game, you could just see a lot of field goals happen. That could be part of the way that the Ravens get to 29 points. Let's say they kick 5 field goals with Tucker, score 2 touchdowns. You maybe get one going to Henry, one going to Lamar or receiver X. That's one way Lamar doesn't make a lineup. So I think kickers are really crucial today. Tucker at captain, I think, is really important. But I think really just keep it in mind here that there's a lot of points in this game. Some of those points can be field goals, even though people only play kickers in like low scoring games. Number 3 way to get unique on this one, not playing Mike Gesicki. It feels like it. There really isn't a great number 3. I think Justice Hill still makes sense. Playing builds where you have just Justice Hill's ability to get there and a lot of third and long plays, maybe playing from behind, I think is one way to get there. I don't feel the best about this as my number 3. I would say there's also just like really, the Ravens overall have guys that are just not going to get played as much as they should because people are going to flock to play Mark Andrews. People are going to think they have to jam in Lamar. People are going to try to jam in Derrick Henry. So as a result, your Bateman's going to be underowned. Zay Flowers is going to be underowned. Justice Hill is going to be underowned. Deontay Johnson, I think, still gets appropriately owned because people are going to go, he's going to take over as a Ravens guy, and he's not going to. So I think it's really just taking bits of the Ravens that aren't owned because the Ravens that are going to be owned are so deadly obvious. And when those other players are owned, they're going to be owned in like Ravens dominant builds. So if you own the lesser owned guys from the Ravens and like a 3-3 kind of evenly distributed build, it could be a way to take it down. So those are my thoughts on the slate, guys. Of course, you can have your own as well. I encourage you guys to always check out lots of content around the space here. What other people are talking about compared to what I'm saying here. ETR, when they do their streams, check those out. Run Pure, fucking Ship It. And there's a lot of good ones out there. Stochastic, of course, obviously. But go watch all the stuff out there. Try to take it in because this is a weird slate today. And I don't know that there's like an obvious edge. And honestly, even with the salaries being so high, the Bills are really concentrated. So follow your hearts. I would say don't go crazy on Jermaine Burton personally, but hey, anything can hit. It's a showdown. So appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for all the paying members. Of course, you too can join below for $4.99. Have to add our guy Braden on who joined the other day. But you too can be on this list, and I'll thank you every video. And of course, it does support the show directly here because I do the show for not a lot of money. Niche content on YouTube doesn't do that well, but I do the show I like that I think adds the most value. And hopefully you guys could support the show along. Hitting the join button down below. Back on Splash Play NBA. Check it out. Let me link it in the chat one more time before we hit it. Hold on. At Splash Play NBA is a channel on YouTube. And of course, videos every day there for the NBA at 4 p.m. So if you want NBA content that's like this, and also has my own projections I create entirely originally, which frankly, like my projections are fucking fantastic. So not to toot my own horn too much, but I love my NBA projections. You'll see them at 4 p.m. today. So watch that at Splash Play NBA. Link in the chat. I'll leave in the pinned comments too. I'll see you guys then. Enjoy your days and good luck no matter what you're playing. Gamble responsibly, even though it's always money time. And yeah, of course, good luck. Bye-bye. See you soon.